All right, so we're going to talk about Ohio northern butterflies. Rachel has experience working with the Toledo Metro Parks doing the butterfly, I'm going to miss transect counts, and also the North American Butterfly Association doing the count for the Oak Openings region. As an all-around nature lover, she volunteers with Nature's Nursery, does programs about monarchs, and volunteers with the Black Swamp Bird Observatory doing bird extraction for the banding station. So I will turn it over. I will stop sharing, um, Rachel, and you can share. Uh-oh. Have I not been sharing?
No, you're still sharing. You haven't stopped
Okay.
sharing.
It's telling me. Oh, there we go. Sorry. We all have user errors. Rachel, are you ready?
So we're going to do it regularly.
No headset.
Okay. We were trying to do a headset so it would be easier, but we're
Oh,
going to
okay.
just do it this way. Okay,
All right,
can
we
you
can
see
see
it?
it. Yep.
Yes. Hi, I'm Rachel Shamy, and I'm from the Northwest Ohio area. And I do the North American Butterfly Association count locally, and that's how I've learned my butterflies. And I raise a lot of butterflies as well. And so I'd love to share the most common butterflies that we see in our the North Ohio area. So this is just a little bit about me. I'm a birder first and a mom of twins, and I lead a lot of birding walks as well as take people on the North American Butterfly Association count yearly, which we end up having about 60 species in one day. So it really helps people learn their butterflies really well. So first off, I thought that I would like to show the difference between a moth and a butterfly. A lot of people don't know the difference between a moth and a butterfly. Obviously, moths tend to be nocturnal, but we have a lot of day flyers. And so because of that, it makes it confusing to a lot of people if they're seeing something nectaring, whether it's a moth or a butterfly. So on the moths, they tend to have like very feathery type antennas, and they have very fat bodies in the abdomen area. And they tend to be closed kind of like in a tent shape, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. That is an IO moth. And the butterflies tend to be open a lot more, but their wings are out to the side. They have very thin antennas with like little bulbs on the end, and they have very thin abdomens. So those are the main things that are the differences between the two. So if you see something flying and nectaring during the day, you can hopefully tell between a moth and a butterfly. So I wanted to do the difference between a monarch and a viceroy. So first off is the monarch. And on the monarch, it's got the vertical striping, and all of the stripes are vertical. So on the next screen, this is the open version. On the next screen, you're going to see monarch versus the viceroy. And you'll see the vertical lines on the monarch. Then you'll see that on the viceroy on the right, that you're going to see a horizontal line that crosses the vertical lines. And that's the difference between a viceroy and a monarch. And also the viceroy is considerably smaller. So you'll notice if you see an orange and black butterfly flying and it looks small, it's probably a viceroy. So after that open version, I wanted to show you the closed version. And you can also see the horizontal line of the Viceroy on the right-hand side, whereas the lines continue to stay vertical in all areas on the Monarch. And like I said, they are bigger. Next is the morning cloak butterfly. And this butterfly is stunning. It is one of our earliest butterflies in the season. So as soon as you get a nice warm day, they can overwinter and they will pop out and start flying. Even if you have an 80-degree day in the spring, in the fall, or I'm sorry, not the fall, but well, yes, they do fly in the fall, but in the winter, like January, February, I've seen a crazy 80-degree day in Ohio and I've seen them flying. So they are kind of a chocolate brown color with the blue little dots around and like a gold edging. And they're medium to large butterfly. They're a good sized butterfly and they can either be low or high, but they are absolutely beautiful. Next is one of my absolutely favorites. It's the red spotted purple butterfly. They are one of the most beautiful butterflies, in my opinion. You can see the reason why they're called the red spotted purple. In the picture on the right-hand side, you can see its red spots when it's closed, which is called the ventral view. And when it opens, it's got that beautiful bluish purple color. So the red spotted purple. And I have wild cherry trees in my yard. And so one year I had one that made a chrysalis on my tree and I found it. And so this next one is going to be a video of it just after it eclosed, which means hatched. You can see the beautiful bluish purple on the inside. And then it will zoom into the outside where it's red. Just absolutely gorgeous. So hopefully you guys will get to run into one of those. This next one is one of two different punctuation butterflies. And there's an easy reason that they are called what they're called. So the first one is the Eastern comma, and it actually looks like it has a comma on it. So if you kind of imagine it upside down, it's a comma. Otherwise, you know, it kind of looks like it's a backwards comma. But anyway, if you see them closed, you'll easily see the comma on the outside. And they're an orangish butterfly with brown lining around the edges. They love to hang out on trees, and they also overwinter in the leaves so they can pop out on a nice warm sunny day. And the next punctuation butterfly is the question mark butterfly. And as you can see, again, it's kind of upside down, but if you look to the side, you can see that it kind of looks like a question mark when it's closed on its ventral view. And so that's the easiest way to identify that. They do have a little bit of a difference. The question mark tends to be more lined with silver around the edging, but they are a very similarly looking butterfly. So hopefully you'll get to see them closed so you can get an easier ID on them. But look for the silver lining to differentiate the question mark from the Eastern comma. Next is one of my absolute favorite butterflies, and that is the common buckeye. And these butterflies migrate to Ohio every year. Not always in great numbers though, but this year was extra special. We had huge numbers. And in fact, there could still be some out there that were some of the last babies that hatched or eclosed. They are raised on a plant called, or it's a grass called ribwort plantain. And so I find them easily in that tall grass. And so I raise them every year. And this year I had 55, which was a record for me. They were just in huge numbers. They were flying everywhere. They tend to fly very low to the ground. They love sandy areas. And obviously they have the big buckeyes. And so that's how you can differentiate them. what's really cool is in the spring, I mean, not the spring, but the early summer, when they arrive, they are a light color on the outside, on their ventral view. But as they later in the summer and early fall, they turn into a rosa red form, which is just stunning. You can see how very red on the outside that Buckeye butterfly is. So the later in the season they eclose or hatch, you will see the rosa red form. And so these are some that I raised. And so you can see the Buckeyes on the one that's partially open. And then also they vary very much on their ventral view with how much red they actually show. And they're a smallish medium butterfly. The next one is the great spangled fritillary. These are big, beautiful butterflies, and they're orange with like brown checkers on them. And they love the milkweed plants. So this is a picture of what's called butterfly weed. It's a kind of milkweed. And so they are very attracted to that, as well as common milkweed that has the pink flowers on it. So if you see the big orange butterflies on the milkweed, most likely you're seeing the great spangled fritillary. There are other fritillaries that are in the area, but they just aren't nearly as common. So this is the most common one that you will actually see. Next is a very common butterfly. And in fact, this past year in 2024, we had a huge year for the red admiral butterflies. And they are one of the earliest spring butterflies. Usually I get excited when I see my first one because I know spring is here. So they are a smallish medium butterfly and they fly very crazy and erratically. So they obviously have a red color to them, could be reddish orange, but they love fruit, rotted fruit. And so you'll see it in the picture that the red admirals were down on some smashed apples in the fall, nectaring on them. But if you put like bananas that are extra ripe out, I put grapes out, actually literally nectar from my Oreo feeders and my jelly. So anyway, that's some good ways to attract them to your yard. Next is another one that I absolutely love, and that's the painted lady. And this is a butterfly that migrates, and they have certain years that they erupt, meaning that they're in huge numbers. And this was an eruption year for 2024. Even though this is late in the season, I literally saw them today out in the sun. So I still have zinnias in my yard, and the large zinnia flowers that I have, they absolutely love. I've had 3 to 4 on there at a time. And so there's 2 different lady butterflies. And the painted lady, she's got 4 eyes on the outside. And she's, like a salmony color with, brown spots. The other lady butterfly does look similar, but its ventral view, the closed view, has a different eye pattern. So the next one is the American lady. So it looks similar on the inside, but on the ventral view with the closed view, you'll see that it has 2 big eyes on the outside instead of the 4 little ones. And so these are not nearly as common, but definitely the painted ladies are one that you should look for, and especially during an eruption year, they're everywhere, like 2024. So. And here's the side-by-side version so you can more easily see. There is a little tiny spot that can differentiate the 2, but it's easiest if they're closed to get the ventral view of the eye spots. The 2 big eyes on the American lady and the 4 little eyes on the painted lady. Next is the pearl crescent butterfly. And it is a tiny butterfly, and it's very feisty and sassy, and it loves to chase other butterflies, especially other males away and things like that. They are extremely common. At times I will see up to 30, 100, just very, very common butterflies. So they're really easy to find. And the ones on the left, obviously you can see they're already mating. But they get, extremely territorial and definitely want to mate. So you'll see them chasing each other all over. This is one of the brown butterflies that we have. The little wood satyr is the most common one that's seen. It tends to be seen in the shade. So if I'm walking down a path and it's sunny, but there's some shaded spots, I will look over in the shaded spots by the low plants. They tend to be closer to the ground and fluttering around the plants in the shade. So they've got the little eye spots around the edge. But there are other brown butterflies that do look similar in that same category, but this is just the most common. Next is the eastern tail blue. And this is one of the two blue butterflies I'm going to go over because there's two that look very similar, but are easily identified if you know the difference. So this is a very small butterfly, an inch or less. And on the inside, they're a bluish purple color. And then on the outside, they have two orange spots. And they do have tails. That's why they're called the eastern-tailed blue. But unfortunately, because of how fragile they are, a lot of times they break off. So you definitely want to look for the two outer orange spots. Or if they're open, you can look for the orange spots there as well. The next little blue butterfly that looks similar does not have the orange spots. And that's how you can differentiate it. So the next one is the summer and spring azure. The only main difference is what time of year they fly. So obviously the spring azure is going to be flying in the spring, and the summer is going to be flying in the summer. But they're, again, a bluish purple butterfly. They've got, a few little spots on the outside, extremely small, an inch or so, but no orange spots. Just plain bluish purple. So that is the difference between those two. So this is the American copper butterfly, and this is one of two copper butterflies I'm going to introduce you to. The American copper tends to be more common. They are found nectaring the far right one you can see on butterfly weed, which is a kind of milkweed. Other little tiny flowers. These guys are very small. They're orange with, spots on them. They can be dark orange or light orange, but they love to nectar on the little flowers. And so these guys are usually found in meadows and prairies and things like that. Whereas the next one is the bronze copper butterfly. Bronze copper butterfly is going to be found in the wetlands. So it's going to be near marshes or some sort of wetlands where there's some stagnant water. And so you can see they look pretty similar. They just have more of a coppery color to them. And the males tend to have less spots than the females. But if you're in a wet area, you're probably going to be seeing the copper butterflies. Or I'm sorry, the bronze coppers instead of the American coppers. The silver spotted skipper. So this is the first of the skippers that I'm going to go over. Skippers used to be their own species, but they changed them to a kind of butterfly. But they tend to have more curved antennas, and they are typically very small. The silver spotted skipper is going to be our most common and largest skipper. So you can see the big silver spot on the side, and the reason that it was named the silver spotted skipper. But when open, it is very brown with two orange spots. And so it's much easier to identify when it's closed. And like I said, these guys are very common. So you will most likely see them very frequently. Next is the peck skipper. This is another one that is pretty common, and it's very tiny. So most skippers are less than an inch long, teeny weeny weeny. This little peck skipper got stuck in my garage, so I was able to just put it on my finger and take it outside. but you can just see its adorable little hooked antennas and the huge eyes. They have the cutest faces, if you can see their faces. And the skippers love blazing stars. So that's what they are on the right picture. The next one is the common checkered skipper, another one of my favorites. I have these all over in my yard and in the meadow behind me. And they have kind of a bluish gray, hairy abdomen, and obviously they're checkered. So they're the common checkered skipper. They tend to be a brownish, grayish, and white checkered, but they're very tiny, just like the pecks, less than an inch long, found usually in the summer. And they use the mallow plant as their host plant. The one on the left got trapped in my back seasonal porch. And so I went out and put it on my zinnia, and it allowed me to take a picture. But I usually see them flying all over in my meadow behind us or near the mallow in my yard. So this is a picture of one of our NAB accounts, which is the North American Butterfly Association count. And you can see how teeny tiny these skippers are. They are so difficult to ID. So I'm just doing the very most common because they're very tough to identify. I'm going to play this video that shows how incredibly difficult it was with how many skippers we found on this common milkweed flowers. They were just buzzing galore. There's a lot of silver spotted skippers. You can see that they are the very large ones in the video, and all the other ones are very tiny in comparison. They obviously really, really like common milkweed flowers. So it's always a great spot to find a lot of them when we are counting every butterfly that we see and every species that we see. It's a 1-day count nationally for each county for a 1-mile area. Next, I'm going to introduce the swallowtail butterflies. So these guys are absolutely huge. The tiger swallowtail is one of the most common that you'll probably see, with the big yellow and black stripes. And so this shows the difference between the male and the female. The male has the black lining around the edges, whereas the female has the blue. And these butterflies love Joe Pye. They love ironweed. You can see them on the bee balm. But they are huge, beautiful nectars, and so very easy to spot because they're gigantic when they fly through your yard. Next is the wanted to show you that the female Eastern tiger swallowtail actually has 2 different morphs. She has 2 different colors. So she not only comes in the yellow and black form, but she comes in a dark morph. So it makes all of her yellow disappear. But if you can see her in the light, you can still see her tiger stripes. But the blue obviously shows up really well. And so she is a dark morph Eastern tiger swallowtail, but the males only come in the yellow morph. Next is the spicebush swallowtail. These guys fly super erratically. It's really, really difficult to get these guys to stop moving. So I was able to, on the far left, get a picture of a female with a very high shutter speed with her open. You can actually see the orange spots, which I didn't even know they had. But they're normally just fluttering, fluttering, fluttering the whole time they're nectaring. They rarely. I caught the one in the middle on the bee balm with a fast shutter nectaring. And then the one on the right is the male, and he tends to be more of a blue-green color, whereas the female on the left is a more blue color. Next is the eastern black swallowtail butterfly, and they're pretty common in our area. And a lot of you have probably had these caterpillars in your yard. They are different, male and female. If you see on the right, the female is the one with the blue lining, and the male is the one with the yellow lining, yellow stripes. And these guys grow on parsley, they grow on dill. I raise mine on Queen Anne's lace, anything in the carrot family, honestly. Anybody that has herbs in their garden has probably found these caterpillars. So this video is a picture of a male that I raised that I had released. And you can see his big, wide yellow markings all the way across. And the next one is, I'm going to show you, these are the pictures of the caterpillars, of the black swallowtail caterpillars. So these guys are on dill and parsley. And so you can see that they look different from the different ages and stages they are, called instars. They start off black with cream in the middle, and then they get spots on them. And they go from black to yellowish, greenish to green. They're beautiful and they're pretty easy to raise, especially because you can just use Queen Anne's lace or herbs if you have them in your garden. Next is the giant swallowtail. This one's kind of opposite of the tiger swallowtail. It is black with yellow striping. And these guys are gigantic, almost like the width of my hand. They're huge. I found the one nectaring on this wild lily. And then the one on the right got stuck in my garage again. It came in. And so I got a picture of it on my windowsill. Then I'm going to show you a video just how huge it is in my hand when I went to release it. I decided it wanted to stay with me for a minute and let me admire it, and I loved it. So beautiful. You can see its tails and the reason why they're called swallowtails. Fortunately, their tails are very fragile though, and they can get broken off. And that's a giant swallowtail. So next, this is the most common butterfly there is, the cabbage white butterfly. It's basically white with a grayish spot on both sides. And the farmers absolutely hate them. Like their name suggests, they love vegetables and cabbages, and that's what their eggs turn into caterpillars that eat the vegetables. And so farmers absolutely hate these guys and want to spray for them. But they're extremely common. The most common butterfly you're probably going to see in Ohio. The next one is going to be the clouded sulfur. And this is one of two sulfur butterflies that I'm going to introduce, two of the most common sulfurs. So first is the clouded, and the female tends to be more of a whitish greenish color, and the male tends to be more of a light yellow color. So you can see the female on the left with her white and then kind of greenish hue on the outside. And then the picture of them mating, the male's on top, the yellow one, and the greenish female is on the bottom. And so these guys are easier to identify when they're flying a lot of times, because the next one is very similar to it. So I like to identify them when they're flying versus sitting a lot of times. So the next one is going to be the orange sulfur butterfly. And you can see on the upper wing that it has an orange color to it. So when they take off and fly, you can see that orange color on the upper wing. And so because of that, that's why a lot of times I wait to determine whether it's a clouded or an orange until they open up and start flying. Clouded are light yellow, but these orange sulfurs have that upper shade of orange when they open up and start flying. And these guys are very common, and they're medium-sized butterflies. They're good size. And tons of them fly in summer and late into the fall. The hackberry emperor. This is one of 2 emperor butterflies. This is definitely the most common one you're going to find. They do not leave the hackberry tree very far at all. They're always around the hackberry tree because that's where they lay their eggs, and the caterpillars, their babies, eat the leaves of the hackberry tree. These butterflies tend to be very friendly and come to people and land on them. They love to drink minerals. And so they love to drink people's sweat. So they can get salts and different things. And so these guys are orange with some little eyes on the bottom and eyes on the outside. And the next emperor butterfly looks very similar, but just is not very common in Ohio. But I wanted to show you the one we found on our knob account. It decided to come up to us and start drinking our sweat because we do our butterfly count in July. And so it's very hot. And because of that, we're all sweaty. And so it was on multiple of us drinking our sweat. But they'll also land on people's cameras, people in general. They just tend to be pretty friendly. And so they're very cool butterflies. So. And the last intro I wanted to do was to dusky wings. And they are very difficult to differentiate between the different dusky wings. So I put all 3 of the more common ones on one screen. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see the wild indigo dusky wing. It's a very erratic flying dusky wing. It's pretty dark with just a few markings on the upper wing. They tend to be by the false indigo plants, and that's why they're named wild indigo dusky wings. And then you have the juvenile dusky wing, and that tends to be more of a spring dusky wing. And so this one I found in the spring with these flowers that were in bloom. And the Horace's dusky wing, they have little markings on the upper edges, a few dots, but as you can tell, they all look very similar. They tend to fly more so in the summer and all summer long. So that's generally the dusky wing you're going to see the most. So there's a book that I would definitely recommend, and it is by the Ohio DNR, and it's The Butterflies and Skippers of Ohio. And it is a free download. If you look up Skippers and Butterflies of Ohio, and it tells when the butterflies are flying, what time of year. It shows the caterpillars, it shows their host plant. So it is very helpful, and I would highly recommend it. So thank you so much. That's what I have for right now.
Thank you.